Welcome to Speak for Yourself. It's the veteran up here, Marcellus Wiley, with the rookie, Emmanuel Acho.
I've never felt more rookie in my life. I've been hot the last couple of days, so I asked for a fan. They gave me this little rinky-dink handheld bought at the airport off Compton joint.
Hey!
Marcellus got a whole big, astute.
I don't know what you're talking about, big dog. Beverly Hills? Beverly Hills adjacent over there. And I got a wrist tie bar. I'm winning today. All right, let's get it started in the NFL. Damn, Acho, I feel for you. The draft is tomorrow, and we'll finally find out which team will pick former Ohio State star Justin Fields. Fields is expected to be a first-round pick, but some reports have his stock falling past the top 3. According to the undefeated, race, I said, could be a factor in the slide, saying, quote, make no mistake, Fields will be one of the first 5 quarterbacks taken in the draft, but the fact that he started the college season as the consensus number 2 quarterback prospect before inexplicably dropping as low as the 5th quarterback at times in some mock drafts behind white players with lesser pedigrees is an indictment of an antiquated system as it pertains to black quarterbacks. Whoa. Acho, is race a factor in how Justin Fields is being evaluated?
So, any show, any quality conversation, I don't think the objective should be to prove one individual right or prove one individual wrong, but it should at least be to make you think.
Okay,
So
I'm hearing you.
The goal of this conversation for me is to at least make you, the viewer, think. Is race a factor in how Justin Fields is being evaluated? I cannot prove it is conclusively. But what I can do is look at context clues.
Okay.
And that's all I'm going to do in this block is look at context clues and make you all think. When I look at Justin Fields, he had always been the number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. He was a number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence coming out of high school, all the way through college, the number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. He actually outperformed Trevor Lawrence in the semifinal game, so much so that people started to ask themselves, should Justin Fields be drafted ahead of Trevor Lawrence? But now, somehow in the last 2 months of being incredibly intentional and scrutinizing every attribute of quarterbacks, Justin Fields has fallen behind Zach Wilson, happens to be white. He's fallen behind Mac Jones, who also happens to be white. I'm not going to draw a conclusion, but I am going to look at context clues. Context clues for me look like this. Cam Newton, his freshman year at Florida, I believe he stole a laptop, threw it out the window, gets suspended, he had to transfer. We heard about that all the way through Cam Newton's college career and his draft evaluation process. Cam Newton was so good, still went number 1 overall, but we heard about that character issue. We've heard about Justin Fields' character issues. I don't know where they've come from because he really hasn't done anything, but there were concerns about how much he loves the game. What we haven't heard much about is Mac Jones, who got a DUI his freshman year and put not only his life at risk, but other people's lives at risk, a 2-car accident. We ain't heard about that character issue. We ain't heard about any character issues except for Justin Fields. Again, I'm not saying it's because he's black. All I'm doing is looking at some context clues. I look at history, Sel, because sometimes history will tell you at least a little bit about the future. History will tell you a little bit about the present at a minimum. 2017, Mitch Trubisky gets drafted ahead of Deshaun Watson. Now, Mitch Trubisky went to a basketball school in North Carolina. Mitch Trubisky did not win a national championship, nor did Mitch Trubisky play against elite competition. Deshaun Watson played at Clemson, now a powerhouse, won a national championship against a powerhouse, and he didn't do it with a plethora of first-round wide receivers. He had Mike Wilson. He had Renfro. That was really about it as far as just major powerhouse talent in that game and in the games of his career. Mitch Trubisky gets drafted with the number 2 overall pick to the Bears, and Deshaun Watson gets drafted later on in that first round. I look at, and again, I'm just trying to make y'all think.
I'm thinking.
I look at the next year's draft with Patrick Mahomes also falling behind Mitch Trubisky. I look at the next year's draft with Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. Now, I challenge y'all, don't have the hindsight bias of you know what actually happened, but Dwayne Haskins plays at a perennial powerhouse in Ohio State. He breaks every Big Ten record, and he breaks every Ohio State record, just about, the meaningful records. Throws for 50 touchdown passes in 1 season. Daniel Jones threw for 50 touchdown passes in 3 seasons. Daniel Jones, the fewest interceptions he ever threw in a season was 9. Dwayne Haskins, in his 1 phenomenal season, he only threw 8. Again, I can't tell you that race played a factor, but I'm just hard-pressed to believe that if there was a black quarterback who went to a basketball school like Daniel Jones did in Duke, who only threw for 27 touchdowns at best and 9 interceptions, and there was a white quarterback at Ohio State who threw for 50 touchdowns to 8 interceptions and broke every record, I'm just hard-pressed to believe that it would not have mattered. The last thing I will say before I pass this baton, and again, I'm just trying to make people think. Sam Darnold gets drafted number 3 overall to the New York Jets. Now, Sam Darnold threw for 26 more yards in his last 2 years than Lamar Jackson threw for in his last 2 years. Sam Darnold threw for the exact same amount of touchdowns as Lamar Jackson. Sam Darnold threw for more interceptions than Lamar Jackson. The difference, Lamar Jackson rushed for 3,000 more yards in his last 2 years than Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield goes number 1 overall. Baker Mayfield won a Heisman. Lamar Jackson won a Heisman. We know how great Baker was in college. But then there are 2 quarterbacks, Josh Chosen Rosen and Josh Allen. Their college careers, their college abilities pale in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't run his 40-yard dash at the Combine or at Pro Day because he doesn't want people to look at him as a receiver. But Hall of Fame general manager like Bill Polian still alludes that Lamar Jackson should play receiver. Again, I can't conclusively prove that it's a race thing, and I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to make y'all think like I've had to think. If Lamar Jackson was white and rushed for 3,200 yards in his last 2 years, won a Heisman in his last 2 years, passed for the same amount of yards as Sam Darnold, but with fewer interceptions, would he have been the 5th quarterback taken? I just don't believe so. Y'all just chew on that and come up with your own conclusions. But I'm just here to make people think.
All right. I love it. Let me start off by saying race is not a factor in how he's being evaluated. And I can prove it's not being a part of this conversation exclusively. I'm thinking. You made me think. And once again, I will take those thoughts to reality and the evidence. I want to preface everything by saying what the wise scholar, Yoda, as I like to call him, said about race and racism. Racism is not dead, but it's on life support. Kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. Thomas Sowell, my God. Okay, let me tell you why I brought that up, just to preface my argument. Because when you have to dig for racism, it probably isn't racism. My daddy always told me that because my daddy said, hey, it hit me right in the face. It wasn't no, oh, look around the corner. I think that's racism. Oh, squint your eyes. I think it's racism. My daddy said, when it's racism, oh, you're going to know it, big dog. So let's talk about this situation right here, because welcome to the big leagues, Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, this is called the draft grinder. This is called the draft process. They play rough, no gloves on. Ask Trevor Lawrence, who just 2 weeks ago was in the media cycle because people were saying he doesn't even care about football. He has nothing to prove, no chip on his shoulder. And that's a cemented #1 overall generational talent in talking about Trevor Lawrence. So, why do I bring up Trevor Lawrence first? No one is touching Trevor Lawrence, even though there's shots still fired at #1. So since he's cemented at #1, who are they going to come at next? #2. And who was #2? Justin Fields. Let me give you some advice, Justin Fields, big dog. It's a little late, but here it is for you going forward. If you're the guy that they're shooting at, don't give him anything of a target. And he gave him enough target. This is the problem when you're #2, but really the one that a Mac Jones, a Trey Lance, a Zach Wilson is shooting for, because nobody's going to hit Trevor Lawrence. This is what occurred. They looked at him and said, let's see how you perform in those 8 games. Let's keep this about the meritocracy, performance. And here we go. 2 years ago, you were 3rd in Heisman voting. You dropped down to 7th. Who cares? That's voters. Let's talk about on the field in those 8 games. Only 8 games. 3 games you had under 200 yards passing. Okay. 3 games with 60% completion percentage or lower. Ooh. Including 44% and only 114 yards against Northwestern. Now, how clutch is he, some people were asking? Because his 2 worst games were in championship games, Big Ten championship game and the national championship game. Interesting. When you talk about a prospect who we're going to try and beat up, like we tried to beat up Trevor Lawrence, he's just a guy we can't damage. We're going to come at you, Justin Fields. Everyone's talking about your athletic talent and how you believe so much in your talent that sometimes you will force it in tight windows. I don't have a problem with that. The guy has a superior arm and superior mobility. But then it gets highlighted. See, people don't talk about the positives that also aren't warranted. How fast does he run in the 40? 4.4, right? We all saw that. Mind blown, right? How come it didn't translate on the field when he only averaged 4.4 yards per carry? Give you a little context right here. Lamar Jackson, 8.3. Kyler Murray, 7.1. Did I bring up Kyler Murray? Yes, I did. Transition to last two quarterbacks taken #1 overall. Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray, one white, one black. So far, no evidence of race. Let's continue. Joe Burrow had a perfect year when he came out. We all know it. Didn't have a 3-pick game like Justin Fields did last year, and never threw for under 200 yards in a game, never under 60% completion percentage. So, white quarterback, perfect year, duh, he's going to go #1, according to the race baiters. All right, let's talk about Kyler Murray then, who didn't have a perfect year, but who went #1 overall, who was a black quarterback, correct? Who was, as some would say, distracted, because he had decisions to make. Is he going to play baseball? Is he going to play football? Is he all in? Is he committed? Did it stop him from being the #1 overall pick? No. So wait a minute. Is the sentence you have to be either a perfect white quarterback or imperfect black quarterback who's distracted and can still be #1 overall? Yes, it is. And if that's the sentence, then how the hell is race a part of this? Let's take it to the grander scope of the NFL and how they reward the black quarterback. Because I was reading this article and it made me laugh as they try to really define the NFL as the racial industrial complex and talk about how they don't reward the black quarterback. Top 4 players in the NFL in terms of pay, in terms of salary, #1, #2, #3, and #4 are all black. Not only quarterbacks, but entire league as players. So when I hear all of that, Acho, I'm really trying to find evidence that the black quarterback is being held back or is being looked at in a different, lower regard than his white counterparts. I end on this and give my boy the baton back. A black quarterback was selected as the first quarterback chosen in 4 of the last 10 drafts, 6 of the last 15 drafts. And I mind you, every team picking #1 doesn't need a quarterback. So with evidence on top of evidence that suggests black or white, as long as you're right on the field, we'll select you. I don't see how race is a factor.
I would say it like this. Just because racism doesn't exist everywhere doesn't mean it doesn't exist somewhere.
Okay.
So just because racism doesn't exist in all situations doesn't mean it doesn't exist in certain situations.
I'm with it.
Obviously, Kyler Murray, he excelled so far above his counterparts, Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins, that he was drafted far above Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, right.
I think when you look at is race a factor, particularly for Justin Fields, or even historically for the quarterback position, I would say that based upon context, white quarterbacks may get the benefit of the doubt or the benefit of omission.
Really? You believe that, or are you saying that?
I believe it for Mac Jones. I believe,
what?
Yeah.
Who? Mac Jones? Okay, let's go.
Here's what I'm toward.
Okay.
I saw, and you were covering, and I was covering Cam Newton. And I saw how much trouble they brought up with Cam Newton and the laptops and the computers, which happened his freshman year. But real talk, outside of Colin, who brought it up 2 weeks ago, and me, who brought it up a week ago, I haven't heard anybody bring up Mac Jones' DUI.
Well,
now, I'm not watching all TV.
I'm about to say, we all know it happened.
I'm not watching all TV.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I'm hard-pressed to think that if a black player of Justin Fields would have had a DUI, he already got character concerns, Justin Fields does, for no character issues. If he actually gave someone a character issue, I'm hard-pressed to believe that it wouldn't be made a massive issue. But then I really look at it like this, because I'm not saying that it affects and impacts each and every team, each and every individual, each and every situation. But who are the decision makers for the NFL drafts? The head coach, the general manager, the owner. The head coach, the general manager, the owner, depending on what team, depending on who has the power. But those are the 3 primary decision makers in the NFL draft. 96 individuals across 3 positions groups, 32 teams. Head coach, general manager, owner. Of those 96 decision makers, 8 are black, which means 88 of the 96 decision makers cumulatively across the NFL are white. The average age of those 88 white men is 59 years of age. It doesn't mean that all of them have any sort of implicit bias. But if just one of those 88 men have some sort of bias, like we saw with Bill Polian, who spoke about Lamar Jackson saying he should be a wide receiver, then that could have had an effect on Justin Fields. If just one of the 88, because we know this, we all gravitate in life towards things we're familiar with. My dog, Matthew McConaughey, he graduated from Texas. I graduated from Texas. That's the homie. Robert Kraft went to Columbia. You went to Columbia.
See you.
Y'all look cordial.
I'm listening.
Right? Y'all got y'all connected. Dan Snyder, owner of the Washington football team. Dwayne Haskins played high school football with his son. There's a relationship there. That's probably even why Dwayne Haskins went to Washington. We all gravitate towards things and people we are familiar with. So if 88 of the 96 decision makers as it pertains to the NFL draft, which is 92%, if 92% of the decision makers of the NFL draft are white, and we know in life we gravitate towards things and people we're familiar with, then I would have to assume, at least to some degree, that just one of the 88 is influenced by race. Because we all are influenced by things we are familiar with. I'm not a big UFC guy, Sel. But if Usman is fighting, I'm watching because he's Nigerian. I'm not a big UFC guy, Sel. But if Israel Adesanya is fighting, I'm watching because he's Nigerian. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm familiar with that. Now, maybe that's just me. But like I know you cool with Kraft, and whenever I bring up a Columbia dude, you remind me that's a Columbia dude. Yeah. That's just what we do in society. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Like we gravitate towards people and things that we have some sort of familiarity with. So in the event, just one of the 88 white decision makers let their white familiarity play a factor, then Justin Fields would be to some degree, not a large degree, maybe not a small degree, but to some degree impacted.
I don't know, man. I wish. I mean, look, there was a time and there was a place. This article even mentions it, the 1930s, 1940s, the gentleman agreement. Black players can't play in the NFL. Yeah, I give you all that, man. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even speak. Go ahead, Acho. It's 2021 now, big dog. These race baiters are running out of worms to fish with. Let's just say that. And don't y'all go and bite what they're trying to fish with. There's no evidence for it right now. I talked about how all the black quarterbacks are being rewarded that are in the NFL. And I talked about how 4 of the last 10 drafts saw a black quarterback taken first. Okay.
What about the other 6?
But what you mean 6? Yeah, the other 6, well, you know what's funny? I'm glad you brought that up. Because Joe Burrow was drafted number 1 overall.
He was a beast.
Kyler Murray was drafted number 1 overall. Baker Mayfield, questionable, but still number 1 overall. And then a year before that, they didn't take a quarterback number 1 overall. They took a black defensive end, Myles Garrett. Y'all keep looking for this racism. Take me with you when you find it. Okay, here's the thing. He got passed up, bro. Like, if you're going to be in a race, talking about race, no pun intended, but pun intended. If we're going to talk about race, you got to finish the race. And you came in as the number 2 prospect, but I think you got passed up, homeboy. You want to know why? Let me tell you about Mac Jones, who was first in completion percentage this year, who was first in yards thrown, who was first in quarterback efficiency rating. Would that guy pass up somebody when we're talking about Justin Fields, who was not first in these categories? He was 55th. He was 66th. He was 45th in those same 3 categories. I think number 1 would pass you up. What about Zach Wilson, who was third? Would he pass up 55, 66, and 45? I think he would. Now let's talk about how David Pollack comes out and says Mac Jones has the best film of all of them, including Trevor Lawrence. But hey, what are we to say? He's just an analyst. And I love you, big dog. You're an analyst. And is race a part of you when you're wrong on someone in terms of analysis? Bill Polian was wrong about talking about Lamar Jackson and how he could not play the quarterback position. You said some controversial things, they tell me, about Justin Herbert. Was race a factor? Was familiarity a factor? No, you were just wrong about Justin Herbert. I've been wrong about 1,000 things, too. Is race going to have to underline me being wrong? Careful of that one. So I see right now on paper, Mac Jones could easily pass you up, Justin Fields. I see easily on paper, Zach Wilson. And Trey Lance has not thrown an interception in his life. Like, what the hell are we talking about here? He got passed up, brother. Now let's talk about how his worst games were in championship games. Or another bad game. You play in Indiana. That ain't the NFL level. You play in Indiana, you go 18 for 30. You throw more interceptions than touchdowns. You get sacked 5 times and a season-high 3 interceptions. They're going to use that against you. The Northwestern game, they're going to use that against you. The last time we saw him play, I know he was injured, but he said he was fine to play. You know the NFL. No excuses, bruh. Alabama game, the last time we saw him play. You want to hear the stat line? 17 of 33, 194 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Second lowest completion percentage of the season. I'm just saying, bro, everywhere I look, I don't see anything. Then you brought up Kyler Murray, and I got to explain Kyler Murray because you said he was so much better than his contemporaries. However, he did have 3 games under 60%. Sound like you, Justin Fields. He did have 6 games with a turnover, 1 game under 200 yards, and another one close at 209 yards. But all of that, and he still went number 1 overall. So if you could be imperfect and go number 1 overall, and then if you're Justin Fields and you're sliding down the draft, what's your complaint? Please, and I'm glad Justin Fields has not done this. He didn't do what Martenzie Johnson did, which is make this article come to life. He has not said a word about race. He has not said a word about his potential slide. Who knows? He still may go number 2. We don't know how the game goes. But I'm glad that he is being a stand-up person about this. But let us all salute him and kind of follow his lead and be stand-up and not blame race as well.
I don't think we're blaming race. I think we're looking. Like,
did you read Martenzie Johnson's?
As I look, I'm like, you can find bad games for anybody. I can find a bad game for Trevor Lawrence. You can find great games for anybody. I can find a great game for Justin Fields against Clemson. Trevor Lawrence's second biggest game of his career, you could argue, or inarguably. 22 for 28, 385 passing yards, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. Against Clemson, he threw just as many touchdowns as incompletions.
Destroyed it.
He balled. He did his thing.
That's why he's going to go top 5.
But I also think you look at it and you're like, wait a second. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones passed up Justin Fields. Wait a second. Zach Wilson and Mac Jones
potentially,
passed up
let's keep saying that.
Yeah. Potentially.
Because we don't know.
We're making the assumption that Zach Wilson's going to
I was supposed to go in the first round. It happens.
So, like, these are assumptions that we are making.
Yeah.
I know that we can be wrong, but you have to look to your motivation for being wrong. For example, if I'm wrong on Baker Mayfield, when he's coming out of the draft, so many people will say, well, Acho, you went to Texas. Baker went to Oklahoma. You don't like Oklahoma? That was your rival? That's your wrong. That's why you chose that. That's why you said Baker wouldn't be any good. That could have been my motivation. There are times where you can just be wrong because you're wrong. I don't know Justin Herbert from a can of paint. The reason I made my indictments on Justin Herbert was because what he said at the draft. I'm not ready to start right away. Bill Polian, maybe he thought Lamar Jackson should be a wide receiver just because his first name is Lamar, his last name's Jackson. Maybe he thought Lamar Jackson should be a wide receiver just because he's tall and skinny. Or maybe it was because he was fast and he was black. I also think we have to look at what are the criticisms? What are the reasons people are knocking people?
Yeah,
and the criticism for Justin Fields was, first off, he can't process. That's been a criticism for the black quarterbacks going back to the 1960s and 70s. You should get back to the 30s.
But what if you're a black quarterback today and they can't process? I'm not saying it's Justin Fields. You can't say it because it's been said?
No, but if it's inaccurate and it's being said, now you're wondering what's the motivation for the inaccuracy.
I'm listening.
Because now we all know, and it has been proven, and if not, I can prove it tomorrow, that Justin Fields is actually a very good processor of offenses. So it's just a matter of what is your motivation behind your words? If your motivation and my motivation behind my critique of Baker Mayfield is because he went to my college rival, then all of a sudden that is now a ill motivation. If the motivation behind knocking Justin Fields, knocking Lamar Jackson, drafting Mitch Trubisky over Deshaun Watson, drafting Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins is because, historically speaking, you see quarterbacks like Daniel Jones win more often than you see quarterbacks like Dwayne Haskins, then you have to question, what is the motivation, and was race a factor in the motivation? Black quarterbacks are high paid in the NFL.
Highest,
They should be. They've earned it. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback talent-wise in the NFL. Russell Wilson has led his team to the playoffs every year except for one. Deshaun Watson was top 5 in every major statistical category last year. Lamar Jackson was a unanimous MVP. So I'm glad they're the top 4 highest paid because they've earned it, or whoever they're, Dak Prescott, whatever he's done. I don't even really, you know what I'm saying. You know where I feel about that.
There you go, taking care of your own.
You know where I feel
Racist.
about that. But I'll say, good. They have earned it. I'm not saying that you can't be black and be rich. Like, to be black and be rich is almost, to some people, an indictment now. People tweeting me yesterday, Acho, I seen you in a Lexus commercial. You sold out. I'm like, what are you even talking? Like, am I not allowed to, succeed in life? Like, what are you even talking about right now? So I'm not going to use the black quarterbacks who have exceeded all expectations. One, a unanimous MVP. One, a Super Bowl prior to the age of 25, plus an MVP prior to the age of 25. One is like the winningest quarterback in his first 10 years of football in Russell Wilson, and the other is Dak Prescott. So those quarterbacks have been exceedingly abundantly great and have all gotten paid. just because you black and get paid don't mean racism cannot exist amongst your field.
Well, if that's racism, please be racist against me. If you're going to reward
that
me.
Isn't, though. That isn't.
And this isn't either. Look, first let's talk to your haters out there. They saying, tell them what I tell people when they say you sold out, Marcellus. I said, you're right. I did sell out because I don't buy into BS. Sell out? No, I don't buy in to BS. This is some BS right here. I'm sorry. Mr. Johnson, who wrote this article, made me question with his dated agenda. Does he put it before or after the adjectives in this article? Because all this system talk, all this NFL of the 40s, and we're in 2021. Hey, bro, it's starting to sound like the boogeyman. Starting to sound a little like the boogeyman, and he ain't real. And today, this ain't real. Whew. I'm going to give you the sentence again. Joe Burrow went #1 overall because he had a perfect year. Ain't nothing racist about that. Kyler Murray was distracted, juggling 2 sports in his mind and in his schedule. Didn't have a perfect year, still went #1 overall. Find the racism in that conversation. Find the racism in that situation. Find the racism in 4 of the last 10 drafts, black quarterbacks taken first. Find the racism in the top 4 players in the NFL getting paid are black. If you're still finding it, let me know when you found it, because then I will know where you are.
Let me ask you this, because you know you played for Bill Polian? Was he your general manager for one of your teams?
No, he was before me. How old do you think I am?
I know. I thought he was a GM for one of your teams.
How old do you think I am? No, he was right before me. Right before.
Do you think that Bill Polian saying Lamar Jackson should play wide receiver, if Lamar Jackson was white, do you think that statement still would have been made?
Yeah. You know why? Because I've seen too many. I played with a white receiver, a white wide receiver who was told when he played quarterback at Arkansas.
Matt Jones?
Matt Jones. They told him. Hey,
he was.
They told white 6'6", 240-pound quarterback Mac Jones play wide receiver. Guess what he did? All right, I'll play wide receiver. It wasn't race. The dude. I got so many stories.
Matt wasn't the quarterback Lamar.
I watched
that. Like, I don't want to disrespect him.
No, Bill Polian was wrong. I don't know what takes I've been wrong on. There's so many I can't even count. But I'm wrong. But trust me, it's never racially fueled. And it's okay to trust Bill Polian it wasn't racially fueled.
So you don't think that's racially fueled?
I don't.
If Deshaun Watson was white, goes to Clemson, beats Alabama, national championship, top 10 in the Heisman voting, and Mitch Trubisky goes to a basketball school, is black, you still think Mitch Trubisky is drafted higher? A black Mitch Trubisky who goes to a basketball school is drafted higher than a white Deshaun Watson?
Dude, I just don't play whataboutism. I don't do Frankenstein color changes. I don't. I have my own issues with Deshaun Watson coming out. I didn't like a mobile quarterback with a knee brace. I was like, dude, got injury concern. How you going to be running around and then did he get hurt in the NFL, in practice, ACL tear? And look, this is... Deshaun Watson is getting protected right now by sports media. We ain't going in on Deshaun Watson like we could and we should. We haven't even addressed it on this show fully yet because we're waiting on all the details to come in. If racism was a factor so much, Deshaun Watson would be leading every show every day. So be careful what you're looking for. You just might see it. Coming up, John Harbaugh says Lamar Jackson is determined to prove his critics wrong. We'll tell you how that can get done. That's next. Don't speak for yourself.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Our own Bucky Brooks. He made headlines when he suggested the Ravens could, quote, graduate from Lamar Jackson and trade up for a rookie quarterback. Now, John Harbaugh praised this quarterback yesterday and was quick to point out the plans for the former MVP. Y'all take a listen.
His 5th-year option will be picked up.
Okay.
Guarantee it. He's definitely going to be our quarterback, so that's the plan, absolutely. I feel like it all points to one thing, and the thing he talks about all the time is, he wants to win a Super Bowl. But Lamar is somebody that just he breaks the mold a little bit. He does it in a way that a lot of people didn't anticipate, Rich. They didn't see this coming. He's very determined, and we're very determined to prove those people wrong.
So, Sal, let's talk about proving people wrong. What's Lamar Jackson have to do to prove his doubters wrong?
Nothing. Ignore them. They don't exist anymore. I understand that was a part of his fuel, his octane to get to who he is now, Lamar Jackson. Good Lord, if I were Lamar Jackson, I wish y'all say something to me. Y'all would see 2 birds in the sky coming from these hands. I mean, I give a damn. Who are y'all talking to? Y'all don't qualify to talk to me, but let me be professional up here. Remove them out of your mindset. Remove them out of your conversation. Even you, John Harbaugh, we're past that point. Like, Bill Polian was wrong. We get it. All the other naysayers and critics, they were wrong. Now it's time to evolve who Lamar Jackson is. Let's talk about that. W.C. Fields, was it Madeir? Shout out to Tyler Perry. Both said this. It ain't what they call you, it's what you answer to. So when people are calling you all these type of things, Lamar Jackson, as long as you don't stop down, as long as you don't turn around, as long as you don't give them energy, your attention, don't answer to it. It's a place where in your room, not only your physical, literal room, but the room that you have in your head to give attention and focus to needs to be removed of the they. Remember DJ Khaled blew up? Talking about they. Who in the hell is they? We all know who they are, and we can't touch who they are because it's just this noise. And let's separate the signal from the noise. The signal is Lamar Jackson. Since you've been in the league, you're #1 in wins. Since you've been in the league, you're #1 in points. Over Patrick Mahomes? Damn. Since you've been in the league, you're #1 in rush yards. You are the best player under 25, just recently voted. Keep all of that in terms of mental ammunition. And all these other people out here talking all that noise, you have already lapped them boys.
So there's only one way Lamar Jackson can prove doubters wrong, and it's by winning a Super Bowl. Period.
Don't choose.
I have to, because it's true. Over the last 40 years, 18 quarterbacks have won NFL MVPs.
Oh, here we go.
Each of the 18 have at least made it to a Super Bowl, except for Lamar Jackson. Over the last 40 years, 18 quarterbacks have won MVP, and all them cats have made it to a Super Bowl, except for Lamar Jackson. Once you have won the individual award, which Lamar Jackson has done, and he did it to the highest level, there's only one more thing you can doubt. Can you win the team award? That's the only thing we can doubt about Lamar Jackson.
I like that.
We can't doubt if he can run the ball. Can't doubt if he can lead his team to a quality record. Can't doubt if he can win regular season games. Can't doubt if he can pass the ball from the pocket, led the league in passing touchdowns. We have nothing left to doubt except for, can you win the big game? We see it from other greats across other sports. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2 MVPs back-to-back. He might win another one this year. The Bucs have the best record in the league the last 3 years cumulatively. But why do we still doubt Giannis? Not because he's not individually great. We don't doubt if he can win regular season games. We don't doubt if he can lead his team to a 1 seed. We don't doubt if he can be an MVP. We doubt, can he win a chip? There's only one thing we can truly still doubt about Giannis. There's only one thing we can still doubt about Lamar. Can you have team success at the highest of heights? If 18 former NFL MVPs that played your position made it to a Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson, you got to get in that group. You got to get in that club.
That group is not going to protect him from the naysayers, protect him from the criticism, protect him from the doubters. It's not. You trying to tell me right now that Matt Ryan's protected from the doubters? He was on the trade block. He still may be. Draft ain't happened yet. You better watch yourself, Matt Ryan. Look at your house twice. Know your square footage. It may be up for sale. Cam Newton, Lord. What? Cam Newton is exempt from criticism. The doubters have all left the building. Tom Brady is still getting doubted. Tom Brady gets doubted every single time. He has 7 Super Bowls. And people still keep saying, I don't know. The cliff is right here. He's about to fall off. Father Time, blah, blah, blah. And let's talk about somebody who's not that old and still not fully respected. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, come on. How many times is he going to have to win the MVP? How many times is he going to be the best quarterback playing? And his own organization still doesn't believe in him. So here's the thing. People always will talk trash. There will always be haters. There will always be the doubters. Why do you care? As they say when you go to church, even Jesus was crucified. So guess what? If I know that's the life, why do I even care what y'all talking about? Because even if I do accomplish it, Tom Brady 7 times over, y'all still gonna have something to say.
You bring up a good point. Regardless, there will still be doubters.
Yes.
What I'm speaking to is, I guess, the largest group of doubters.
Okay, I like it.
LeBron James, the largest group of doubters right now, the largest group of haters, he didn't win 6 titles.
Straight. Undefeated.
Right, if he wins 6, if and when LeBron wins 6, there will still be, well, he wasn't perfect. Well, he still lost. Like, there will still be doubters, but at least you can eliminate the largest group of doubters. So now for Lamar Jackson, because you bring up a great point, his largest group of doubters is, can Lamar Jackson win in the playoffs? Thus far, he hasn't shown us the ability to do so consistently. 30-7 in the regular season, 1-3 in the postseason. Completion percentage goes down, passer rating drastically down, passing and rushing touchdowns, you can just see in perspective and imagine how those go down, obviously along with giveaways. 7 giveaways in 4 games as opposed to 28 giveaways in 37 games.
Are those better teams he playing against?
Of course. But, even with all that being said, yes, he will eliminate a large group of doubters, but Lamar Jackson, like Marcella said, you can't eliminate all of them.
Hell no.
Coming up, the Browns owner, he says he's pleased with his quarterback, Baker Mayfield. We'll tell you if they really believe in Baker. That's next. Speak for yourself.
Welcome back. Terry Bradshaw and Fox Super 6 are giving away $5,000 for each day of the NFL draft this week. One of the day one contest questions is, who will be the first non-quarterback drafted? Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, Micah Parsons, shout out to LeVar Arrington and Patrick Surtain, or another. Acho, who you got?
It's going to be Kyle Pitts. I don't think that the Falcons at the 4 spot let a talented tight end, talented generational player like that go by him. Penei Sewell's a beast at left tackle. Jamar Chase is a dog at wide receiver. But I just don't think you let Kyle Pitts go by the 4 spot.
You sure? Okay, all right. Well, I agree with you, dude. Kyle Pitts, dude, he's just special in terms of athletic ability, talent, and what he can do to compromise defense. Penei Sewell, he's a monster. And sounds like a good pasta dish. Download the Fox Super 6 app and play for free for your shot to win. And make sure you tune in to NFL Network for round 1 tomorrow at 8 Eastern to follow along live. Good host. Baker Mayfield was the first overall pick in the draft a few years ago. I heard you, Coben. Now he recently had his 5th-year option picked up. Baker said earlier this week that he's more concerned about winning games than a long-term deal is, quote, a little bit on the back burner. Well, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam appears to be leaning towards an extension, saying, quote, we're pleased with where Baker is. Nacho, what did the Browns' comments say about their belief in Baker?
They truly believe in Baker like I believe in Baker. Like that? Fully and fervently.
That?
Yeah, you know me. I'm trying to take more from it than I want to take from it, but I'm going to take what I want to take because I want to take it. They truly believe in Baker, so like I believe in Baker, and it's very simply as to why.
Why?
They understand that Baker Mayfield's transgressions prior to their arrival was not because of Baker Mayfield. It was because of the other parties. They understand that, Stel. Kind of like your wife, Anne-Marie. Everything you tell her about me, she's a great woman, wonderful woman. She probably understands that the other previous engagements you had didn't work out, not because of you, Marcellus Wiley, but because of the other parties. If she can understand that and you can be a beneficiary of that, then I don't think that Jimmy Haslam can't understand the same thing and Baker can't benefit in the manner in which you benefited. They understand, wait a second, Baker, you struggled your sophomore year. You weren't great your freshman year, your first year in the NFL, but by that 3rd year when we showed up, when Andrew Berry was the general manager, when Kevin Stefanski became the head coach, you balled. So, Baker, it wasn't on you, big dog. You just didn't have the right partner. You weren't tethered to the right individuals. Now that you're tethered to us, we see what you can do. Kevin Stefanski, in 1 year, 1 season as a Browns head coach, has more wins than the previous 7 head coaches had in their cumulative tenure. What do I mean by that? Eric Mangini, he was there for 2 years, 10 cumulative wins. You see Shermer, 2 years, 9 wins. Chazinski, 4 wins. You see the names. I'm not going to go through them all. But Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, the new people in charge of that team, they understand, Baker, you are great. You just needed our help to make you great. We ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. We going to be great together.
Oh, my God. You did dig for that one right there. That was not on the surface, not what I heard right there. Their comments tell me exactly what the reality is, that they're right on the fence about Baker Mayfield, just like his performance is, right on the fence. You see some good, you see some bad, you see some inconsistency. And I heard some inconsistent words from the owner, let me emphasize this word, owner Jimmy Haslam, who's been there since mid-2012. He comes out and says, yeah, playing old classic good cop, bad cop. You know what? As an owner, he says this. Well, Andrew Berry and Baker are having those conversations. We're going to circle back and talk about this. What owner do you know has to go, 1, delegate to someone else, and 2, get the intel from them to circle back to say we're going to make a decision? Last time I checked, the owner has the final say. The owner makes the final decision. So for him to play, I'm the good cop, but Andrew needs to talk that out. Andrew ain't gonna say nothing. And then had that conversation with Baker Mayfield, just told me what I needed to know. He tried to pass the buck. So Baker Mayfield, just like me and all my other engagements, you always want to bring up my past. Let me tell you this. All my other engagements, I love to make me look like the star in those movies.
You were.
It was all on them.
It was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
I was there.
No,
let me tell you.
You weren't.
Let me tell you what happened. It wasn't all them. I had to grow. I had to do something different. I had to evolve. Baker, you're me in all those other engagements. You have to grow. You have to evolve. You have to be consistent. And Anna Marie will be waiting for you. Coming up, AB is back in Tampa. We'll tell you if anybody can stop the Bucs from repeating. That's next on Speak for Yourself. Hey, right?
Let's head to Tampa. Antonio Brown is coming back to the Bucs on a one-year deal as the rich get richer. That deal can be worth just over $6 million. Now, the Bucs already brought back all 22 of their Super Bowl starters this offseason. Now, AB is also back for another big piece to the roster. So, Sel,
Yes, sir.
I don't know how, but will anybody be able to stop the Bucs from repeating?
No, nobody wearing a different uniform. The Bucs can stop themselves because they won't go back to square one. Square one for this team was no continuity, putting it together. Tom Brady jumping on board, no offseason, no preseason, breaking into parks and recs just to get a rep because you're that hungry for this team and an opportunity. When you win a Super Bowl, are you that hungry still? Are you still that desperate? So if they return to that place of desperation, they can do it again. Last team to return all 22 of their starters in week one of the next year, 1979 Steelers. Guess what they did that year? Repeated as Super Bowl champs. History is on their side. Last thing I want to say is that stick move by AB to start off that conversation. Was that on the Honey Badger? They getting that back too? Oh, it's going to be problems for every team not wearing the Bucs colors.
I co-sign. The only thing really that can probably start the Bucs is going to be injuries or the Buccaneers themselves. So let's look at the last three teams in the Super Bowl to go back to the Super Bowl. Seattle Seahawks. They played against the Denver Broncos. They won. They go back against the Patriots. There was a 1 yard difference, a 2 yard difference between them repeating. Then you have the New England Patriots. They go to the Super Bowl. They beat the Falcons. They go back to the Super Bowl, lose to the Eagles because Nick Foles has a historically great run. They repeated, but they lost. Then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They go to the Super Bowl. They beat the Niners. They go back to the Super Bowl. They lose to the Bucs because of injuries. Both their tackles are out, and they just kind of got outplayed. So if you're looking at the Bucs, if I'm looking at history, what stopped the other three teams? Seahawks were stopped by a yard. The Patriots were stopped by a historically great run, and the Chiefs were stopped by injuries. I'm led to believe the Bucs will go back. But who stops them? Somewhere between a yard and injuries or Nick Foles. Either way, I don't think anybody's stopping them.
Somebody's hamstring pulls up a yard short of the end zone against an opposing quarterback on fire. That's the only thing that's going to stop them. It's crazy to bring up those situations because basically we're going to watch this NFL season looking for who's going to play against them out of the AFC. Is Buffalo going to take that next step? Is Kansas City just going to say, hey, we've reloaded our offensive line, we are healthy, and we're hungry once again?
What's interesting, though, Sel, is if the Bucs, the Chiefs, to me, are head and shoulders above the rest of the AFC. The Ravens are really good.
Head and shoulders?
Here's why I say it.
Just neck.
Second best team in the AFC is the Ravens. Buffalo.
Buffalo.
The Chiefs are at least still ahead.
They are
Buffalo.
ahead of them.
But they're head and shoulders above the Ravens because Ravens are 0-3 against them. Head and shoulders above the Ravens, above the Colts, above the Titans. But in the NFC,
keep going.
The Rams are good.
Hey,
you don't think so?
I mean, I don't know. Matthew Stafford, have you ever won a playoff game?
Well, even with Wolford, they went to the playoffs and won. They beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks are good. You believe in the Niners at least with Jimmy G.
Yeah.
So the Niners are good.
He's gone tomorrow.
The Packers are good. The NFC is at least it's much more competitive. I think that the Bucs are only ahead above about 4 or 5 teams in the NFC. Where in the AFC, the Chiefs are still ahead above one and then ahead and shoulders above the rest of the slate. I think the Bucs gonna do it. We're gonna see. Coming up, we getting closer to the draft. Should Bill Belichick go all in on Justin Fields and trade up to make that move? We'll answer that next. Speak for yourselves.
Patriots have the 15th pick in the draft tomorrow, but a report says, quote, some groundwork has been done on a potential deal with the Panthers. Interesting. A trade with Carolina will move New England up to number 8. And if he's still there, that pick could be quarterback Justin Fields. So, Acho, should Bill Belichick go all in on Justin Fields?
He should go all in on somebody. I don't know if it needs to be Fields. I don't know if it needs to be Mac Jones. I don't know if it needs to be Trey Lance. Whoever's left, I think he should go all in on somebody. What we know is this. Next year's draft class is not going to be nearly as loaded, which means that you aren't going to be able to get a quality quarterback later in the draft unless you turn another one into a miracle like you did with Tom Brady, a late-round pick. So, Bill Belichick, if you're probably going to have a better record next year, thus you're going to draft later next year, and next year's quarterback class is not as talent-laden at the position, then you better make the move while you can. Go all in on Lance or Fields or Jones, whoever is left. It doesn't need to be Fields, but Belichick, you can draft one position properly, and that's the quarterback position.
No, it's Cam Newton. Go all in on building around Cam Newton like you have this offseason. was that the love of the 5 prospects or the hate of the former MVP in Cam Newton? Are you kidding me? Every quarterback struggles in year 1 with Bill Belichick. Either you sit, Tom Brady, or you suck, Cam Newton. But guess what? Year 2 is going to be different. That's it for us. The PPC press conference for this Saturday's Heavyweight Showdown. Andy Ruiz Jr., Chris Arreola. Next. I nailed that.